I remember the exact moment everything changed, and strangely enough, it wasn't when I walked down the aisle or when I said, "I do." It was later. Much later, when I turned my head and saw my parents, standing at the back of the reception hall like strangers who had accidentally walked into the wrong event. My name is Eleanor Hayes, and I grew up in a small, quiet town just outside Manchester. My parents weren't wealthy, not even close, but they gave me everything they possibly could. My mom worked double shifts at a care home, and my dad spent most of his life fixing things for other people. Cars, roofs, boilers, you name it. They never complained, not once. Everything they did was for me. So when I met Daniel Whitmore, it felt like my life had suddenly shifted into something I'd only ever seen in films. He was confident, well-spoken, and came from a family that had more money than I could even imagine. Their house alone looked like something out of a magazine. At first I was intimidated, but Daniel made me feel like I belonged. Or at least, I thought he did. Looking back now, I realized there were signs. Small ones at first. His mom insisting on helping with my wedding dress, which slowly turned into her choosing it entirely. His sister casually suggesting we cut down my guest list because we need space for important people. His father taking control of the venue, the catering, the seating arrangements, everything, while smiling like he was doing me a favor. I told myself it was normal, that this is just how big families operate, that I was lucky to have people who cared enough to take charge. But deep down, there was always this quiet discomfort I couldn't quite explain. The morning of the wedding was a blur. People were everywhere, makeup artists, planners, photographers. I barely had time to sit, let alone think. My phone was buzzing constantly, but not once did anyone ask me where my parents should be seated. I assumed it had already been handled. I trusted Daniel. I trusted that he wouldn't let something like that slip. The ceremony itself was beautiful. I won't lie about that. The music, the flowers, the way everyone stood as I walked down the aisle, it felt magical. And when I saw Daniel standing there, smiling at me like I was the only person in the world, I pushed all my doubts aside. For a moment, everything felt right. But moments don't last forever. The reception was where everything started to unravel. People were laughing, glasses were clinking, conversations filled the room. I was being pulled from one group to another, introduced to relatives I'd never met, smiling until my cheeks hurt. And then, in the middle of all that noise, something caught my attention. The head table. Daniel's entire family was seated there, perfectly arranged like a picture. His parents in the center, his siblings beside them, everyone laughing, comfortable, exactly where they expected to be. And that's when a thought hit me. Where are my parents? I looked around the room once, then again, slower this time. My heart started beating faster, not out of panic yet, but something close to it. And then I saw them, at the far end of the hall, standing. Not sitting, not included, just standing. My mom had her hands clasped together like she didn't know what to do with them. She was smiling politely at people who weren't really looking at her. My dad stood beside her, trying to act like everything was fine. But I could see it in his eyes. He felt out of place. At his own daughter's wedding, something inside me dropped in that moment. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, heavy, like a truth finally settling into place. I turned to look at Daniel. He was laughing with his brother, completely relaxed, completely unaware. Or maybe he just didn't think it mattered. And that's when I realized something that hurt more than anything else. He didn't notice. I could have pulled him aside. I could have whispered, asked him to fix it quietly. But then I looked back at my parents again, still standing there, trying not to make a scene. And I knew quiet wasn't an option anymore. Not this time. The speeches were about to start. Daniel's father stood up first, of course. He spoke confidently about family legacy, about bringing people together, about how proud he was of his son. The room listened, laughed, applauded. But not once, not even once, did he mention my family. Then Daniel stood up. He spoke about love, about our future, about how happy he was. Everyone smiled. Everyone clapped. Still nothing. And that's when I stood up. I don't even remember deciding to do it. My body just moved. I walked toward the microphone, my heels echoing softly against the floor. People turned to look at me, some smiling like this was part of the plan. It wasn't. I reached the mic and took a slow breath. My hands weren't shaking. My voice wasn't breaking. If anything, I felt clearer than I had all day. I tapped the microphone lightly and the room fell silent. "Before this night continues," I said, "I think something needs to be corrected." You could feel the shift instantly. Confusion, curiosity. I glanced around the room, then continued. "I've spent today celebrating the family I've married into, and I'm grateful for that. I really am." A few nods. A few polite smiles. "But I've just realized something important." I turned slightly and looked toward the back of the hall. The two people who gave me everything, who worked their entire lives to make sure I could stand here today, are standing at the back of this room. The silence deepened. I lifted my hand and gently pointed. "Those are my parents." Every head turned. My mom froze completely. My dad looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. And then I said the words that even I didn't know I was about to say. "If they don't have a seat at this table, then neither do I." You could hear the gasps, the whispers, the discomfort spreading through the room. Daniel stood up quickly. "Ellie, what are you doing?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time that day, I didn't feel small. "I'm fixing something that should never have been broken," I said. No one moved at first. Then suddenly, everything started happening at once. Chairs were being shifted, people stood up, staff rushed forward trying to rearrange the seating, but it didn't matter anymore. Because the truth had already been spoken, my parents were finally brought forward and seated beside me. My mom's eyes were filled with tears she was trying so hard not to let fall. My dad gave me a small nod, the kind that said everything without needing words. The rest of the night continued, but it wasn't the same. The laughter felt different. The smiles felt forced. Something had changed and everyone knew it. Later, when the guests had started to leave, Daniel pulled me aside. "It wasn't intentional," he said. "They handled everything. I didn't even realize—" "That's the problem," I interrupted quietly. "You didn't realize." He didn't have an answer for that, and in that moment I understood something I wish I had seen much earlier. A wedding doesn't just show you who you love. It shows you what people value, who they respect, and where you truly stand in their world. That night didn't end like a fairy tale. There were no perfect goodbyes, no magical ending, but it gave me something more important than that. It gave me clarity, because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't staying quiet to keep the peace. It's standing up, even when your voice is the only one in the room